So hi again here at the Australian Army Tank Museum, taking a look at some of the World War II era tanks in the collection. So we're up at Puckapunyal, about 120 kilometres north of Melbourne on a rainy day. And here we have an example in the collection of the Stuart light tank, so the M3 light. This is the M3A1 specifically, that was supplied by American forces or by the American government early in the war to British forces. So it was employed initially in North Africa. It came with a 37mm anti-tank gun, which was showing that it was probably a little underpowered at that point in the war, given that a lot of the German tanks were starting to be upgraded, and was primarily used in a scouting and reconnaissance role for that reason, rather than taking on enemy tanks toe to toe. A number of examples were supplied via the British to the Australian Army, and it formed the basis of some of our early tank formations that were being built up here at the start of World War II for later use against Japanese forces. So the M3 is the early iteration of the Stuart. It used construction techniques which were later phased out in the M5 Stuart. So these earlier versions are characterised by having hulls that are riveted to frames. You can see a lot of rivets employed in the design of the hull. The turret is a combination of cast and welded and also riveted in some areas. So it's a bit of a hodgepodge, but it represents what the US various industries in the US were capable of doing early in the war. So US tank doctrine prior to World War II saw that or surmised that US tanks and tanks in general during any future wars would primarily be used in a role that required them to support infantry. So they were tended to be bristling with machine guns, while having a gun that was designed to deal with tanks in the turret. So the example you see before you has a 30 caliber machine gun in the bow. It also had a coaxially mounted 30 caliber machine gun. It also had the capability in the sponson side to mount fixed 30 caliber machine guns, which was an interesting idea that perhaps the driver would rotate the vehicle and strafe using these fixed guns. So those fixed guns, of course, are not in place, but you can see here where the outlet for them has been welded over on the sponson side. So again, 37mm gun, which was considered fairly potent at the start of the war, but was quickly outgunned. So as a light tank, also relatively lightly armoured, and was replaced in US service or supplemented in US service with M3 mediums and later M4 Sherman mediums. So great example of the Stuart, which was supplied in large numbers to the Australian forces here, and which was employed in the Pacific Theatre. Later versions of the M5, for example, saw service almost to the end of the war with in Italy and other theatres in Europe. So interesting example. This earlier example used a Continental engine. So this engine was replaced in later versions by Cadillac V8s in order to free up production of that Continental W670 engine and enable that engine to be used in aircraft. So yeah, early version. You can see here that it's still got the hinged doors at the front for driver ingress, obviously creating weak points for shells that might hit the vehicles, but so be it. That was the design that was there, and you can see the combination of sort of welded construction and riveted construction in the hull. So great example of the M3A1 here at the Australian Army Tank Museum.